Okay, so you want to own a golf course. 200 acres of manicured green, your name on the clubhouse, members waving as they drive past in white carts. You picture Sunday mornings, cold drinks on the veranda, and a business that basically runs itself because people will always pay to hit a small white ball around a beautiful lawn. Sounds simple. It is not simple. Here's what nobody tells you before you sign anything. The game of golf, the actual 18 holes, barely breaks even on its own. In fact, at most courses in America, the golf itself is not the profit center. It is closer to the excuse the business needs to exist. So today, we are going to take apart the economics of owning a golf course, piece by piece, and show you the real machine hiding underneath the fairways. Let us start with the number that scares most people away before they even finish the feasibility study. A standard 18-hole golf course costs somewhere between $5 million and $15 million to build, and a luxury version with water features and championship-grade turf can blow past $30 million. Break that down per hole, and you are looking at roughly $110,000 to $390,000 for each hole. And that number climbs past $500,000 per hole the moment you add lakes, elevation changes, or heavy bunkering. Now here's the part that surprises almost every first-time buyer. Land is not a small line item. It is the single biggest one. Land acquisition alone typically eats 40 to 50% of your entire construction budget, because a regulation 18-hole course needs somewhere between 150 and 200 acres, and that number can climb to 300 acres if you want dramatic water features or rolling terrain. And you are not just buying flat grass, you are buying engineering. Underneath every fairway that looks effortless, there's a drainage system, a soil profile, and an irrigation network that decides whether the course survives its first drought or its first flood. One real-world irrigation bid came in at $2.75 million for a single course, covering just over 2,000 sprinkler heads, pump stations, electrical work, and control systems. When the board tried to cut that number down to $2 million, the designer had to start stripping out sprinklers, cutting more than 600 of them from the plan. And that decision alone becomes visible on the course for the next 20 years. Then add professional design fees, which typically run between $20,000 and $500,000, depending on whether you hired a volume shaper or a signature architect. Then add permitting, environmental review, and grow-in time, because new turf needs 6 to 12 months just to establish before a single golfer can walk on it. From groundbreaking to opening day, you are looking at 18 to 36 months, where the course produces exactly $0 of revenue, while every single cost keeps accumulating. And notice what almost none of this spending buys you. It does not buy you a single golfer. It does not buy you a membership sign-up or a green fee. Every dollar in that construction budget goes towards something invisible once the grass grows in. Drainage pipe buried 3 feet underground. Electrical conduit running to sprinkler heads nobody will ever see. Soil amendments mixed into greens that look like they occurred naturally. Compare that to almost any other retail business, where a chunk of your opening capital goes toward things customers can actually see and touch. Shelving, signage, a dining room. On a golf course, the single most expensive asset in the entire operation is dirt that has been engineered to drain water at a precise rate. And if you get that engineering wrong, you do not find out for years, until the first 100-year storm floods a green that was supposed to handle it. So you have opened the gates, the ribbon is cut, the flag is up on the 18th green, and now the real test begins. Because a golf course does not stop costing money just because it is not busy. This is where operating leverage becomes the defining fact of this business. The nationwide average maintenance budget for an 18-hole course sits at just under $1 million a year. And in the American Southwest, where water is scarce and grass fights the desert every single day, that number climbs toward $1.5 million annually. Labor is the single largest piece of that puzzle, typically consuming somewhere between 55 and 60% of the entire maintenance budget. A private club maintenance staff runs 18 to 25 people, while even a modest public course needs 12 to 18 full-time and seasonal workers just to keep the grass alive and the bunkers raked. And these are not unskilled positions. A golf course superintendent earns roughly $67,000 a year and functions essentially as the plant manager of a living, breathing factory, one that never stops growing and never stops needing attention. Add assistant superintendents, equipment technicians pulling in around $45,000 annually, spray technicians handling herbicides and fungicides for about $36,000, and irrigation technicians who keep that multi-million-dollar sprinkler system alive.
Then there is water itself, which is not free just because it falls from the sky sometimes. Roughly a quarter of American golf courses purchase municipal or well water outright, and those that do pay an average of $107,000 a year nationally, a figure that jumps to $238,000 in the drought-prone Southwest. Fertilizer, fungicides, fuel, and equipment leasing round out the rest, and none of it, not $1 of it, cares whether you had 10 golfers or 200 golfers that day. The lights stay on, the mowers still run, and the sprinklers still fire at 4 in the morning, whether the course is packed or completely empty. This is what fixed costs actually mean in practice, a bill that arrives on schedule regardless of demand. So how does anyone make money running a business with brutal fixed costs and a product that loses to weather half the year?
This is the popcorn business moment, the part where you realize the thing everyone thinks they are buying is not actually the thing that pays the bills. Industry-wide profit margins on golf course operations sit somewhere between 5 and 20%, and a huge share of courses hover at the bottom of that range or below it. Green fees, the money golfers pay just to play around, are often the biggest single revenue line for a public course, and yet green fees alone barely cover the fixed costs we just walked through. So how does an owner actually get paid? The real game is a stack of secondary revenue streams layered on top of the golf itself. Cart rentals add margin on every single round, with almost no additional labor cost. Pro shop merchandise, food and beverage service, lessons, tournaments, and banquet rentals all sit on top of the base green fee. And at a well-run club, these ancillary streams can represent a third or more of total revenue.
But the real money, the structural money, lives somewhere else entirely, in membership.
A private club membership is not a purchase. It is a subscription with a massive upfront deposit attached. Initiation fees alone can value each active member somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000, and clubs with a waiting list can push that number past $6,000 per member, layered on top of recurring annual dues that arrive whether that member plays golf 40 times a year or never shows up at all. This is the mechanism that transforms a golf course from a weather-dependent recreation business into something closer to a bank. Because dues income is predictable, it renews automatically, and unlike green fees, it does not evaporate on a rainy Tuesday. There is also a version of this game that has nothing to do with golf at all, where the course exists purely to sell real estate around it, because a home on a fairway commands a premium, and the actual 18 holes function as landscaping for a housing development. In that model, the golf course is not the business. The golf course is the marketing budget. Now here is the trap door underneath the floor. The one factor that no amount of good management can fully control. Golf courses are unusually exposed to two forces working together at the same time: water and leverage. On the water side, courses in dry regions are staring at annual water bills that can swing by hundreds of thousands of dollars depending purely on rainfall and local regulation. And a single drought-driven restriction on irrigation can turn a green fairway brown in a matter of weeks, which directly kills the green fee revenue that was supposed to cover the fixed costs in the first place. On the leverage side, most golf courses, and especially the real estate-driven ones, are financed with substantial debt used to buy the land and build the infrastructure before a single membership check ever clears. That debt carries a debt service coverage ratio the lender watches constantly. And when interest rates rise, or when a housing market slows down, the course that was breaking even suddenly cannot cover its loan payments. This is the same mechanism that sinks banks and stadiums. Borrowed money amplifying good years and devastating bad ones. Except here, the collateral is grass that dies without daily attention, and land that only has value if someone wants to build homes next to it. There is a second layer to this trap, and it is weather itself, which is not a one-time risk, but a recurring one that returns every single season. A single major storm can close a course for weeks, wash out cart paths, and strip topsoil off a green that took a full growing season to establish. Unlike a retail store that can simply reopen the next morning after a bad weather day, a damaged golf course can stay closed for months while it regrows. And during every one of those months, the fixed costs we already walked through keep arriving on schedule. Payroll does not pause because the course is closed. The loan payment does not pause either. This is why lenders who finance golf courses look so closely at cash reserves, because the business needs enough of a buffer to survive an entire season of zero revenue without missing a debt payment. And plenty of owners discover that buffer was too thin only after the storm has already passed. Let us talk about Tim Blixeth and the Yellowstone Club. Founded in 1997 in Big Sky, Montana, the Yellowstone Club was built as a private ski and golf resort for the ultra-wealthy, spread across more than 13,000 acres with a course designed by Tom Weiskopf. Membership required a $250,000 initiation fee, $16,000 in annual dues, and proof of at least $3 million in net worth. Members included Bill Gates. On paper, this looked like the purest version of the membership machine we just described. Exclusive, expensive, and seemingly recession-proof. But in 2005, Blixeth and his then-wife secured a $375 million loan from Credit Suisse, and court records later revealed that roughly $209 million of that loan was diverted straight into personal accounts. That money funded a $28 million French chateau, a $40 million Mexican resort, a private island, and a $40 million Scottish golf retreat for a side venture that never worked. The club itself was left holding $343 million in debt. By 2007, cash flow problems were already surfacing, and then two things happened at once: a bitter divorce that split control of the club, and the 2008 financial crisis, which froze credit markets and gutted luxury real estate demand, exactly when the club needed a buyer. A proposed $455 million sale collapsed. The Yellowstone Club filed for bankruptcy in 2008 and was eventually sold for $115 million, a fraction of what had been borrowed against it. Blixeth was later ordered to repay roughly $41 million to creditors. The lesson is not that golf courses are inherently doomed. The lesson is that a golf and real estate machine funded almost entirely with leverage is only as strong as the credit market and the housing market it depends on, and both of those can turn against you in the same season. Let us run the actual numbers, optimistic scenario against realistic bad year on a mid-sized daily fee course. In the optimistic scenario, your annual maintenance budget lands around $800,000. Your green fees, cart rentals, pro shop, and food and beverage combine for gross revenue in the $2 to $3 million range. And after payroll, utilities, insurance, and debt service, you walk away with a net profit margin in the 15 to 20% zone. On a construction investment of $10 million, that is a payback period stretching well beyond a decade, but at least the machine is generating positive cash every single month. Now, the realistic bad year. A drought restricts irrigation for 6 weeks during peak summer season, and rounds played drop by 20 to 30% because the fairways are visibly browning out. Water costs, instead of sitting near $100,000, spike toward the $230,000 range that Southwest courses already deal with in a normal year. Membership renewal softens because prospective members can see the course is struggling, and that erodes your most stable and highest margin revenue stream. Meanwhile, your maintenance payroll, your loan payments, and your insurance premiums do not move by a single dollar, because none of those costs care about rainfall. Net profit margin compresses from that comfortable 15 to 20% down into low single digits, or in a genuinely bad year, into negative territory.
The difference between these two scenarios on a mid-size course can be well over $500,000 in a single year. And if you were leaning on debt to finance the original construction, that swing is exactly the kind of gap that turns a debt service coverage ratio from comfortable into dangerous, right at the moment your lender starts asking harder questions. So what is a golf course, once you strip away the clubhouse and the flag on the 18th green? It is a machine that turns land, water, and grass into a subscription business wearing a recreational disguise. The golf itself is almost incidental, a beautiful, expensive loss leader that exists to justify collecting membership dues, selling real estate at a premium, and locking golfers into a habit they will pay for whether they show up or not. When it works, it is one of the most durable annuity businesses in leisure, a stream of dues and fees that renews itself year after year on land that only gets more scarce. When it fails because the two things holding it together, water and leverage, both depend on forces no owner actually controls: drought, interest rates, and a housing market that can freeze overnight. You are not really buying 200 acres of grass. You are buying a bet that the rain keeps falling, the rates stay low, and the people who can afford $300,000 initiation fees keep wanting somewhere exclusive to spend their Sundays.